Alright, my hair is in a messy bun, but we're loving it, okay? Yeah. Hello you guys, it's Dani, and welcome back to another video. Before I really get into the meat of this topic, I want to quickly say I'm starting a new series on my channel all about relationships and love and sex and attraction and all that good stuff. However, I don't have a name for this series, so I'm thinking something like Relationship Corner or Attraction Hour, but I don't know. I would like something a little more fun and witty. So if you guys have any good suggestions on what to call this series, leave a comment below. Serious inquiries, please. I could use them. The reason I'm actually making this series is because I was writing a video that I wanted to create today. And in the creation of this video, I realized that there is so much I have to say on this topic and I cannot cram it into one video. So what I want to focus on today is codependency. Why we are codependent, what codependency actually is, and what else? Right, how to stop. Duh. I am giving my personal definition of what I have found this is. Because I have been learning a lot on this topic within myself as someone who has been very codependent and still can be. Yeah. Just to preface, I'm going to be using terms like the codependent and the narcissist. And first of all, I do not believe that these traits encapsulates all of what an individual is. Secondly, I want to say I am not using the proper psychological terms. Like, when I say a narcissist, I'm not referring to someone with narcissistic personality disorder. I am referring to my own definition, which I will provide for you right now. So my definition of a codependent would be someone who is most concerned with aligning themselves to other people as opposed to aligning themselves to their authentic truth. Whereas I would define a narcissist as someone who is most concerned with getting the people around them to align to them as opposed to aligning to their authentic truth. So in both scenarios, it's really about an ego game, and it's not about acting from the heart, even though the codependent may seem that way at times. In my personal opinion, the codependent and the narcissist are two sides of the same coin. They're opposite sides of the same spectrum. So it's like light and dark, hard and soft. They're opposites, but they're also the same. So the narcissist will have aspects of the codependent, and the codependent will have aspects of the narcissist. It's just that what they present to the world may be different, which is why a lot of times, at least in my personal experience, because I've seen this within myself, when healing from codependency, what we often tend to do is we go to the opposite side of the spectrum. We do the pendulum swing. And then over time, we find that state where instead of trying to get other people to align to us or trying to purely align to other people, we are most focused on aligning to our higher self, or aligning to our authentic truth without trying to manipulate or force other people to be what feels good to us all the time. So what does codependency really look like? I'm sure most of you have an idea in your head of what it is, and I would probably say that you're accurate, but I want to illustrate this a little bit further. So the codependence operating system is pretty much purely based on avoiding rejection. So for example, if you are attracted to someone or if you like someone, you will not tell them what you feel about them unless you feel like they feel the same as you, because of the fact that you do not want to face that rejection. So you are constantly tiptoeing around your truth. You're constantly putting up a mask and wearing a kind of facade so that you can be the kind of person that makes other people comfortable, and in doing so, you get your needs met. And in this way, you get your needs met indirectly because you are not directly asking for those needs to be met. You're often manipulating. So I'm going to give some examples within myself of how this has looked in me. For example, if you're in a situation where there's a friends with benefits, but you have feelings with them and you would like to have a relationship with them, instead of saying, hey, look, I enjoy hooking up with you. However, I really do want a relationship and that is how I want this to progress. You're afraid of doing that because you're afraid the other person will now be like, oh, okay, I can't get involved in this situation anymore. If that's what you want, I'm gonna dip. And that feels like a rejection. So instead what you do is you act like, yeah, I can totally do this like super casually. Like, no, really, like it's like totally not a big deal. Like, I'm totally down for this. But you're not. In your head, you're trying to think, how can I turn this into a relationship? How can I make this person become what I want them to be? And all of it is done covertly. All of this is done in your head. And all of this is done through sly little manipulative actions where the other person often is not aware of what you're doing. And then they're wondering why they may feel trapped. And then you feel like you have to mirror avoidance and give them space in order to feel like you can have any connection with them at all. And this is the reason why the codependent and the narcissist end up in relationships together. Think of it this way. If there's a narcissist and they know that you are a codependent, either consciously or unconsciously, and that even though they can sense that you want to have a relationship and they don't, they know that if you're just friends with benefits, you're not going to push it because you're more concerned with aligning yourself to them to maintain connection than to actually speak your truth and say what you actually want out of the situation. So the codependent, while on the outside may seem like the victim and seem like the one who is good, is just as much the perpetrator as the narcissist in a lot of these scenarios. This has been something that's really hard for me to accept because I have looked at a lot of my past relationships and felt like I was the good one. They were so toxic, blah, 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 but I was toxic too. I can't sit here and pretend like that wasn't the case. Because in order for me to actually heal this process, I have to see myself as bad. So much of the self-concept of the codependent is A, as I've said before, avoiding rejection, and B, the idea that I am good. I am a good person. But your concept of good is not truly based on your authentic values. Your concept of what makes you good is based on what you feel like aligns you to the people around you, because that is what so much of your identity has been based on. Don't feel bad or ashamed for the fact that you've developed this strategy, because to be quite honest with you, based on everything you experienced throughout your life and the circumstance you were put into in childhood, you had to be the codependent. You had to learn how to align yourself to other people, because that is exactly the way that you could stay safe. If you were aligning to your highest truth, then your parents may reject you, or your parents may tell you that you have to be different, that you're being selfish. And so now you've developed all of these beliefs about feelings, thoughts, and traits that are truly authentic to who you actually are. And now you keep telling yourself that they're bad because you've created this figure that is predictable in the outside world. I know how people will react if I continue to behave this way. But the reason you're watching this video is because it's not working anymore. It's painful. You're not getting your needs met, not really. And it's so tiring feeling like in every single relationship, even when the other person doesn't expect you to align to them, you do it anyway. And so it feels like everyone around you is a narcissist because at one time you were around those people and now you're creating that world that you may no longer be in. And if you still are in that world, surrounded by people who expect you to be what they want you to be, the only way to really get out of that situation is to come to yourself. Because of the fact that your current identity is based on this idea of goodness, and because of the fact that you have had to deem certain true authentic aspects of yourself as bad in order to maintain this image or this self-concept, you have to be willing to see yourself as bad. Because in doing so, in willing to see yourself as bad, as the villain, that is when you're able to find your true values. Because, for example, let's say you grew up in a family where eating meat was bad, so you've highly identified with being vegan your entire life. It is your life. It's a huge aspect of your identity. And so throughout your childhood, whenever you would see people eat meat, you would judge them. You would hate them. You would think they're such a terrible person, like that's so selfish. However, let's just say the authentic truth of your body and your higher self is that you are someone who wants to eat meat. You are someone who wants to buy products from sustainable farms and support that industry, and it fuels your body. It makes your body feel good. So you are depleting yourself You are now nutrient deficient. You develop all of these health problems, for example. And it's because of the fact that you're not willing to see yourself as bad and admit, I actually do want to eat meat. But you have created so much cognitive dissonance because of the environment that you grew up in that you're not even aware of that truth. So the only way to become aware of this truth is to be willing to see yourself as bad because you think having this truth is bad. And I know that's so much easier said than done. And I'm about to get into the other processes of, how to heal codependency. But do not expect any of this to happen overnight, because I have been working on healing codependency even before I went through my spiritual awakening. I've been working on this pattern for the past 4 years, and I'm still not completely there. Be patient with yourself, because if you have the intention of healing this codependent wound, you will get there. If you are seeing results, no matter how small, you are making progress. You are taking those baby steps. So really be gentle with yourself throughout this process. You got this. There's nothing wrong with you if you're not able to just be like, well, I'm better overnight. Right now, there's this spectrum. You're not trying to meet in the middle of like, okay, sometimes I align to people, sometimes I want people to align to me. What you're doing is you're getting off the fucking scale. You are creating a completely different scale, or like you're embodying the whole thing because you're aligning to your truth. Doesn't matter if people align to you. Doesn't matter if you align to people. And those feelings will very much be there because this is a pattern that is completely ingrained into our human nature or human society, essentially. But it doesn't have to be that way. But we have to be self-aware of the truth of what's going on for us to get to this next stage where we can unapologetically be ourselves. The codependent is not authentic. The narcissist is not authentic. Your heart is authentic. Now that we've kind of illustrated what codependency is, what it looks like, and even though we talked a little bit about the one thing that helps, which is the whole bad, being willing to see yourself as bad, let's get into what we can do to help ourselves heal from codependency. Number 1, be honest unconditionally. When I say this, I do not mean like share every single thought on your mind. And for example, I'm not necessarily telling you to be unconditionally honest 100% starting right now, because you may end up being honest when it's not your truth. What I mean by being honest unconditionally is, let's say that I want to be in a relationship with somebody. I could either tiptoe around it, test the waters, see if they want the same thing, and then if I feel like there's a very low chance of rejection, that's when I shoot my shot. Shoot your shot when you have no idea whether or not you're going to be rejected. Shoot your shot regardless. It's hard, but let me tell you something. Since the codependent spends their whole life shifting and moving in ways to avoid facing rejection, you are never going to live the life you want that way. Ever. Because almost anything that you want or desire or have the will to create has the opportunity for you to be rejected. For example, with me making these videos, if I'm constantly tiptoeing around, people completely discrediting everything I say and trying to align to what I think other people will think is good of me to say, I'm not gonna help anyone. No one's gonna learn shit from me, because the only thing I'm preaching is what everyone else preaches, but I'm coming on here and deciding to share my truth and my experience and what has genuinely, authentically helped me, regardless of whether or not I think it's politically correct, regardless of whether or not I think it's what the vast majority of people think, because this is genuinely what I have learned on my path. And that is where my authentic, higher value comes from. It doesn't come from me putting myself in this box where I'm good. So first of all, do not expect yourself to be on the stage at day 1. For example, you may have that feeling of wanting to be in a relationship with that person, and maybe you just start by sharing like, oh, I'm attracted to you. And then you take the next step of like, I feel really insecure around you. And then you take the next step of, you know what, I actually want to be in a relationship with you. You can take those baby steps and take your time and share your thoughts. It doesn't have to be all in one bomb or all in one blow. This is really closely aligned to the first point, but my second point is put yourself in situations where you know that there is a strong likelihood that you will be rejected. And I don't mean just like put yourself in that situation to be rejected so you learn. I mean, don't wait. You know that feeling. I'm sure if you have this pattern, you know that feeling where you're in a room with someone and you're sitting and you're waiting for your opportunity to have a conversation with them, or you're sitting and waiting being like, maybe we can hook up right now, or you're sitting and waiting for some form of connection that's beyond just like watching TV, but you're waiting for that other person. You're not saying like, hey, I actually don't want to watch this. Do you want to like do something else? Or, hey, like I am kind of interested in you. Let's see where that goes. Like, I don't know. It's just like, whatever. But don't wait to feel like you know the other person will agree. Because here's the thing. By avoiding rejection, it's becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger monster. There are some times where rejection will suck as bad as you think it will. However, there are times where rejection will surprise you as to the fact of like, oh, that hurt. But also like, now that I've experienced that, I feel this relief. And now there's these other things that I've been avoiding doing. And now I have the drive to do them because I'm not as scared of being rejected anymore. Your fear of rejection and your fear of failure is like the number one thing holding you back right now. The number one thing. So even if it starts with little scenarios, it doesn't have to be like, I will admit my feelings of love to you. Like, it doesn't have to go there yet, okay? But it can start with you, when someone makes you uncomfortable or is too close to you, just being like, hey, I need you to take a step back. Setting that boundary, knowing that that other person might be like, what, it's not a big deal. Or they'll just be like, oh yeah, for sure, okay. But doing those little things where you know there's that potential of rejection. And then you get to expand that box. It's like a rubber band. Right now it's super tight. If you expand it just a little bit, it becomes a bigger circle and you get to keep stretching it until it gets to that point where even when it's scary, you can speak your truth because you're not running from rejection anymore. You are being gentle with yourself in this process of expansion, which is really freaking cool. Yeah. Step 3, acknowledge and accept your inner narcissist. Obviously, I'm not asking you to just like become this narcissist. However, there are some moments through this process where that pendulum swings. It's natural. It's a part of the process. It's a part of learning. And by embracing that aspect of you that really wants to like protect you and create a world that feels safe to you instead of you trying to create yourself to be something that feels safe to the world, accept that part of you that is like that. And in doing so, these two aspects that right now are like pulling away from each other can integrate, and then you become that spectrum. If you're saying, screw the narcissist, I'm healing the codependent, you're not really doing anything. It's like if I have 2 feet and both feet have a fungal infection, and because one is my dominant foot and one is my less dominant foot, I'm only treating the fungal infection on my dominant foot, it's still gonna hurt every time I walk. It's still going to suck going through the world with a fungal infection on one foot. You have to address and accept the needs of both sides of the coin. I want to give you an example recently. I don't really know if this story is attached, but it was a huge moment for me in seeing how much I've really grown in this pattern by accepting my inner narcissist. I was at dinner with my grandpa, and basically I was like playing basketball while he was waiting for the table, and they were supposed to text me when the table was ready, but long story short, I never got a text. And so about 10 minutes after he had already been sat down on the table, my mom told me that he was waiting for me. And so I sat at the table with him, and basically he was so freaking like frustrated. He kept getting up and like complaining to the staff, and then like all these little things happened. Like he ordered a cup of soup and they gave him a bowl, and he was like, I asked for a cup. So the whole time, like I'm just saying like, oh my God, just like stop complaining. That's all I was thinking in my head. And then at one point I was like, you know what, I can't take it anymore. And I was about to say, you know what, this complaining isn't helping anything, just stop. And then this thought hit me like a truck, which is like, if you were in his shoes, how would you feel if someone responded to you like that? And I was like, wow, I would feel like a pit in my stomach. I would feel like my feelings were completely invalidated. I would feel more alone in the world. And I realized like the reaction that came up in me, like that was like, oh my God, was the kind of reaction that I received during my childhood when I would have a negative feeling about something. So instead, it just came to me as I said it, and I was like, I understand. When all these little inconveniences line up and you expect a certain level of service and that expectation isn't met, like that's really frustrating. I just want to acknowledge and see the fact that it's valid to feel the way you feel. And then he was just like, thank you. And I was so surprised because I wanted to say stop, because by him stopping complaining, I would feel better. I would be trying to align him to me and my needs and my wants. But instead, I didn't align myself to him and be like, yeah, it sucks. Like, this is the worst. Instead, I just spoke my truth and said, what you're feeling is valid. I understand what you're feeling. Even though it has frustrated me, I don't want to glaze over that. And then that also provided me relief, because it wasn't even on that scale of completely aligning or completely acting against it. I took both and accepted both sides and then found the third solution. I found the third option. But that's not possible unless you're willing to look at both sides of that coin. Because if I'm just sitting here ignoring the narcissist, which I was doing at first, is I'm just like, and I'm biting my tongue, and I'm just sitting there frustrated in my own head and not doing anything about it. But instead, I shifted the energy completely. And guess what? He didn't complain again. And that wasn't my goal in saying that, but it ended up being the result. Sometimes, not always, this is not a promise by any means, the results you want is not in what you think will get you there. Like, it's not the path of least resistance in terms of the outside world. It's about the path of least resistance within. I guess the fourth thing I want to say, and this isn't really an exact tip, is I think a lot of times when we use the term trust the process, we're kind of like, well, but how? When I don't currently have the evidence that the process is working. In fact, right now, it feels like my reality is crumbling around me. Regardless of whether you think your process is working, if you are seeing those shifts in your reality and you are taking those steps to do things differently in your relationships, and you are, even if little by little, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, the universe will have no choice but to match where you're going. You may not have as many friends. Your relationship with your family may look completely different. You may be feeling like now you can't be in your living situation anymore. All these things naturally start to crumble. That is the external sign that you are letting go of these old systems. And as you let go of the old systems, the higher truths and your actual values, it's not something you have to logically think about. It's something that finds you. But if you want a reality that is safe for everyone to be their authentic self, you have to step in. You have to be the change you want to see in the world. And if you don't want to be in this pattern of aligning to other people and then trying to get people to align to you when you never can get people to align to you, at a certain point you realize my only choice is to align to myself, to align to God, to align to the universe or source. And that's going to look different for every individual because you are a unique individual. Your truth and my truth may not look exactly the same, and that's okay. Surrender to the fact that you have chosen to do this work, and this work is not for the weak. It is not for the faint of heart. It really is hard. But the coolest part about it is you don't have to be like fully healed of codependency to get to a stage where you feel more in alignment with yourself. You don't have to wait to be fully healed for it to get better. It gets better every single time you take a step forward. You can ground into your truth as you are releasing the old. So give yourself time, give yourself space, and give yourself patience, because you deserve it. I love you. You're doing amazing. You're doing so much better than you think you're doing, I promise you. And yeah, so thank you for watching this video. I am also posting another video on the members channel all about self-hate as a coping mechanism. So if you're interested in seeing that, consider joining the Foxx tribe. It's on that little join button on one of these sides or something. Probably this one? Yeah, the join button. It's blue right down there. Please give me suggestions on what to call this series on relationships, love, yada yada yada. And like and subscribe and do all those things if you feel called to do so. All right, thank you. I love you. See you in another video.